This video is sponsored by Incogni.
He's back!
Nella terra della stella solitaria in Texas c'è un nuovo sceriffo in città, il predestinato vince il Gran Premio degli Stati Uniti d'America.
Ferrari, you've rocked my world. What's crazy is that this Leclerc victory makes 2024 the winningest season of his career, equal with 2022. That's actually mad to me. He should have had like 6 or 7 that year, but who cares? We are back. There's not too much to say other than Charles Leclerc is that guy. Perfectly capitalized on the opportunity to get past Verstappen and Norris at turn 1. Carlos followed him right through as well, and from there, their race pace was on another planet. With no upgrades as well. If you watch the sprint race though, it's pretty obvious that they had the best race car. It's just that the two drivers spent half the time fighting each other instead of working together. But that doesn't matter, we won. You guys remember Monza, right? Lando won pole, Charles P4, and goes on to win the race. In Austin, Lando started on pole again, with Charles P4, again. And what was the result? Il predestinato vince. Norris got his chain snatched again, but we'll talk more about him later, because he was actually getting cooked by the Dutch Minister of Defense. Also, real quick, can we mention how on the podium, P2 and P3 just got given some tyres? I was actually crying. There's no way they did all that for a medium and a hard. If I'm Max and Carlos, I'd actually be throwing that thing in the trash. Alonso was also being a menace all weekend. Him and Lawson got into a bit of a tussle during the sprint race, so he decided to start flaming Liam in the post-race interviews. It's his career on the line, not mine. Fernando, chill, this is a kid. How are you nearly 45 years old and your ops are 22? Bro's really moving like a villain in fiction movies. These guys are 50 beefing with 17-year-olds. He really said F them kids. And Alonso didn't stop there. In fact, he made it his mission to be a nightmare for Lawson during qualifying. Starting with Q1, trying to compromise his outlap. Like mate, just let it go. This man cannot survive 1 second without getting his lick back. It's so funny. Speaking of Liam, that qualifying performance was very, very good. P3 and Q1, woo, I'm noticing. But sadly, they couldn't let him cook because he was already going into the weekend with a 60 place grid penalty. But somehow, he managed to go from P19 to P9. That first stint he did on the hard tyre was absolutely brilliant. And once again, he had Fernando rattled. Do you know how good you have to be to get under Alonso's skin? This was a masterclass in race management. 1 race in, and this dude was already proving to be a serious problem. Just like this kid right here. And once again, Colapinto showed us levels. On a track he's never driven before, with just 1 practice session, makes it into the final round of qualifying. And if you watch the last couple race reviews, you know what clip I'm about to run.
This motherfucker don't miss.
For qualifying, they made some setup changes that didn't work, causing the car to behave completely differently to the previous day. A similar thing happened to a certain someone, but I'm gonna save my rage for later. Then in the Grand Prix, like Lawson, he managed his first stint to perfection. Came out on fresh mediums, defended Magnussen like a beast, and finished in P10. I've already said this before, but someone give this dude a seat. I know Williams have already got their drivers locked in for next year, but like, can you not just Control Z and put my boy Franco in there? And, hold up, wait, I'm getting a call, guys. Wait, what? Potential fraud? Hello?
They raced me so hard.
Okay, jokes aside, I actually got a scam call the other day. And I was wondering, how did they get this number? Well, it's because they paid for it. I'm sure a lot of you are aware that data brokers collect your personal data and sell it to third parties. Like how greedy. Taking personal information like your name, home address, location history, online activity, social security number, and way more. And as you can imagine, if that sort of info falls into the wrong hands, they can commit some devious crimes. For example, scammers can use AI to mimic the voices of your friends and family to trick them into sending money. Yeah, I know. It's wild, right? And for everyday users, it's nearly impossible to prevent this manually, since it would take forever to contact every single data broker to remove your personal info. But Incogni does all of this for you automatically within seconds. And all you have to do is create an account, inform them of whose personal data they'll be removing, grant them the right to do so, and voila. Sit back, relax, and rest knowing that your personal data is no longer being misused. Incogni are offering 60% off their annual subscription, which honestly is a very good deal considering what they'll do for you. By using the link in the description and entering promo code BMPHBEN, you'll be eligible for this deal and a 30-day money-back guarantee if you change your mind. Once again, make sure to use my specific link, which will be in the description, and thanks again to Incogni for sponsoring this video. Now the two Haas cars, what can I say? Double points in the sprint race, Magnussen into Q3, and Hülkenberg P8 in the Grand Prix. My prediction of Haas finishing ahead of VCarb is already aging pretty nicely. It was so unlucky for K-Mag though, he really should have finished P8. But in terms of their overall performance, they've made a colossal jump. I put this all down to their recent partnership. Simply sticking that logo on the car was enough to give that car some pace. Because once you go with Toyota, you know you're going to cook at Kota. These guys brought in some upgrades that worked wonders. And shout out to Komatsu, man, because this rate of improvement is something that I haven't seen from Haas in a very long time. This man has been relentless. Not only has he helped the team solve their problems with tyre wear, ensured regular updates are being brought to the car throughout the season, but also securing this deal with Toyota was massive. And it makes you wonder what Hülkenberg must be thinking. He's leaving the team just as they're on the up. Ocon and Behrman, on the other hand, must be rubbing their hands together because at this rate, Haas will be at the head of the midfield. Another team that had upgrades was Alpine, and I initially couldn't tell the difference between their car and the McLaren. Maybe painting the car orange gave it some performance alongside the upgrades, because Gasly P7 in qualifying, that was huge. Strategy basically ruined his race though. He also came in too early like Magnussen, then got caught up in traffic and lost a whole heap of time. At least his day wasn't as bad as his teammate, whose race was pretty much over from lap 1, but at least Ocon's day wasn't as bad as this man's entire weekend. Speaking of Lewis, I reckon he'll win one more race before his stint at Mercedes comes to an end. When it comes to where I think he'll win, it will probably be Austin or Brazil, mainly because he goes so well around Kota. Mainly because he goes so well around Kota. Mainly because he goes so well around. Mainly because he goes so well around. 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 So well around. So well around. So well. So well. So well. Because he goes so well around. Hey man, I'm so sorry. It's actually my fault. I should never have put this prediction out into the universe because it's aged about as badly as this one clip from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
This is absurd. I feel like P. Diddy with fur.
Like, I don't even know what to say anymore. As a Lewis fan, it's actually just tiring at this point. Seeing him either topping practice sessions or having the pace throughout Q1 and Q2, only for the final run to just fall to pieces. What happened this weekend was almost a carbon copy of China, and you'll understand why I say almost in just a second. So, back in China, Lewis performed very well in both sprint qualifying and the race. I mean, that car had no business being anywhere near P2, and he somehow managed to get it there. But then, for no reason whatsoever, they decide to completely change the setup of the car, altering the balance enough that he makes a mistake going into the hairpin, which got him eliminated in the first round of qualifying. And China wasn't even the first time this happened. This goes as far back as 2022. Now you're probably wondering, well, the mistake was so small, why would it get him eliminated? And that's because the field spread nowadays is so tight, you can't afford even a tiny lockup like that. 0.6 of a second can take you from 5th to 15th in the blink of an eye. So now, we get to Austin, and in sprint qualifying, Lewis was well over 2/10 up on Max before his lap got ruined by a yellow flag. Then, he had some kind of suspension failure in the sprint race in addition to horrendous tyre wear. Mercedes obviously have to fix this issue, and in the process, they make a ton of setup changes. And when I heard that, I was like, man, I got a bad feeling about this. And then, I don't even need to tell you what happens next. Bro finished the lap, and I immediately thought of this guy.
Easy top 3. If I'm not 16th!
George crashed in Q3 and had to go back to an older spec car, and you would have thought they would have done the same with Lewis since he explicitly requested to start from the pit lane. But the engineers refused to do so, and I already knew that it was over before it started. The lights go out, and I'm actually hyped because he makes up 5 positions in turn 1 alone. But then the car just does this. Like, what am I even looking at anymore, brother? Ugh. This Mercedes upgrade can't even be called a downgrade. It's a downright abomination. Lewis went off at the exact same corner as Russell without even pushing that hard. But I've personally had enough of this team's shenanigans, so we're not even going to spend too long complaining about them. I'm going to do one dedicated video later this week discussing the fallout between Hamilton and Mercedes in detail, and that's it. But until then, all I can say is, whatever they do to Lewis from now on, it cannot affect me. Bro already won Silverstone in the most beautiful way possible. He's still the most recent race winner for Mercedes. And most importantly, we're going to Maranello, the most recent race winners in Formula 1. Life couldn't be better. Piastri had a Lewis moment in sprint qualifying by exceeding track limits, literally by millimeters. But at least he didn't make the same mistake in actual qualifying. One thing that surprised me though is the sheer size of the gap between him and Lando. He really doesn't care about this championship campaign that his teammate is trying to pull off. And he shouldn't, because watching Lando trying to overtake Verstappen was one of the most painful experiences of my life. So many times I was like, just send it. And on multiple occasions, he actually could have just gone for it. But he just kept hesitating. You could just tell that Max was not intimidated whatsoever. Norris would close up and he wasn't even fazed one bit. This is what happens when you go up against prime Lewis Hamilton in your first title fight. After that, everything else is just child's play. But I will say this, I hate this rule of if you're ahead of the apex, it's your corner. This came directly as a result of Max's driving standards because the FIA were too scared to penalise him when they needed to. And in this case, by what the regulations state, Verstappen technically did nothing wrong. But come on bro, all he does is just outbrake himself, force his rival off the track, and that's it. Either Lando has to give the position back, or overtake off the track and just firm a 5-second penalty. In this case, I think Max should also have been given a penalty because he too went off the track in defending. Oh, and what about lap 1 at the same corner? This time, it was Sainz who was the driver on the inside, Verstappen went off the track and gained an advantage, but no penalty. Oh, but it's lap 1, so they allow it. Okay, fair, but to me, it only makes things even more confusing. This isn't a turn 1 situation, this is well into the first lap. By this point, the field has already spread quite a bit, and normal racing rules should apply. Unless, the lap 1 rule just means that it's a free-for-all, and you can drive however you want. In which case, you can't even really blame Max for taking advantage of it. Turn 1 was perfectly fine, and knowing how far ahead he is in the championship, he doesn't even care if they both DNF, so is likely to take more risks. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought about this down in the comment section below. For the most part though, his defending was very good, and it just goes to show that he's levels above Norris as a driver. I mean, that should go without saying, but still. Max just has Lando in his pocket every time they race each other. And this really was a make or break race for the championship. I'm now like 99% confident Verstappen will wrap it up. Red Bull's upgrades seem to have brought them back into contention. McLaren are no longer the clear-cut fastest team. Mercedes are completely nowhere, and Ferrari are looking mighty. Every other team bought a massive raft of upgrades heading into the weekend, but the Scuderia just optimized their package to perfection and dominated from start to finish. There is still a small chance for them in the Constructors' Championship, the drivers not so much. Had Leclerc not had that bad run from Silverstone to Canada, who knows where he could have been. But hey, let's just wait till next year. Speaking of 2025, I've got a video coming out on Thursday where we'll be discussing all the potential storylines, so be sure to keep your eyes out for that. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, share it around with friends, and subscribe to the channel if you're new to get my latest videos in the future. Be sure to also check out the link to Incogni in the description below, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.